Hello, welcome to another Word of Gord. I'm thinking about belief systems again. We've touched on this matter before. It's one of those all-encompassing metaphors as we come into and experience incarnation. You cannot underestimate the power of belief systems on us as experiencing souls. Even when we leave the spirit planes to arrive as babies in this world, we bring with us, some more than others, a hefty cache of belief systems. Because the spirit planes are, despite their vast amounts of freedom and joy and peace, still have their underlying belief systems. We arrive here and very quickly become defined by those who care for us. Those definitions are expressed with a great deal of love and care for most of us, but that does not stop them being limiting definitions. We are more than our little helpless rubbery bodies, but those around us will tend to limit us with their definitions of how cute, lovable, and cuddly we are. And as we move into childhood and adulthood, those definitions become increasingly powerful and rigid. Family, society, economics, politics, religion, all of them clamp down upon us with definitions and expectations. And we very quickly lose our previous dreamy notions of limitless freedom and light. Our genesis, if you like, as light beings is lost in the flurry of activity on this plane. As experiencing souls seeking greater understandings than that which is offered to us by the institutions of society, look and look and look and follow teachers and books and practices, some of which will allow us to see the various belief systems in which we have allowed ourselves to be caged. we can then, as we pursue our practices, shuck off one or other belief system which we feel we have outgrown. We no longer allow ourselves to be defined by the definitions of ancient sacred books or hierarchies of priestly functionaries. We no longer allow ourselves to be defined by the dictates of politicians and bureaucrats, even if we behave morally and legally as good citizens. We can easily sidestep the definitions those systems would impose upon us. Recently, I've been made aware, once again, of other belief systems that are imposed upon a good deal of the population by one documentary I watched on the pernicious influence of the psychiatric and pharmaceutical hierarchy and its armamentum of psychotropic drugs and the billions upon billions of dollar profits that they make on this, as they, through their advertising and their creation of reports and studies, biased, of course, by those who are selling you the drugs are often those who are conducting the surveys and studies and saying they are good for you. The vested interests in that belief system, that your moods and your mental state and your emotions need to be controlled by drugs. It's I think, one of the best modern examples of how a belief system is created and sustained by its profiteers and practitioners, and how millions of people will fall into line through lack of discipline and weakness of mind. In this caged belief system, those who are addicted to psychotropics of one kind or another, whatever label they happen to have this month or this year, are very similar to those who subscribe to the belief systems of various religions. Those religions that will tell them how to behave and what to think about what we're doing here and what we will do later in the various afterlives that we will lead. Those belief systems extend into the afterlife, and there are several, if not many, heaven worlds created and sustained by the belief systems of the various religions, world religions, and smaller cults. They all have their place up there. And that place and those places are visited by those who experience the near-death experience, as we now call it. And a recent book by a Harvard neuroscientist, I believe, has received much interest and acclaim, uh, although it is not that unusual, an NDE, because of his prominent position in the academic hierarchy, the much admired academic hierarchy. The book is receiving more attention than those written by folks like you and me. So again, it brings up this whole notion of belief systems and who chooses to believe in the realities experienced by this projected consciousness of this dead for half an hour or 3 days or whatever neurosurgeon. I read one or two critiques of this, and it was interesting to see how religion writers for newspapers and dedicated atheists like Sam Harris would react to this, each imposing their belief system on the belief system of the NDE experiencer. The religion writer for the Washington Post, whose name I now forget, at least admitted that she was open-minded about these experiences and felt that they were in fact ultimately a matter of faith and not a matter of proof or disproof. So that's a step forward. A step forward from those religionists who would base their opinions on whether you met their favored prophet on your NDE trip. And we've certainly had plenty of those. Went to Heaven and Met Jesus books several times. But again, that's belief system. And if I have an OBE and meet my deceased parents and tell you about it, as I have at various times, that again is an exercise in my belief system. I would suggest that because I and others explore the various realms and not just the heaven of the sect that we were born and brought up in, that belief system is wider, deeper, and ultimately much more useful than the one which keeps you in the heaven of your parents or your grandparents or great-grandparents' choice. Now, that's not to say that Presbyterian heaven is any better or worse than Buddhist heaven or Hindu heaven. It is not, in my experience. There are energy planes beyond the heaven worlds, which are much more profound in their exposition of spiritual freedom than the heaven worlds of the great religions. And seekers have explored those, and I have helped seekers explore those. Those of you who are interested in moving beyond the heaven worlds of your conscious or unconscious choice, but are a little nervous perhaps about not actually having a radiant body, not actually having a brain which is yours and yours alone, not actually having a character that is the development of your personality here on earth. It can be quite a leap to move into the universal mind and the eternal consciousness, leaving your personal one behind. For we do indeed move beyond our characters and our karma and our issues. We can be eternal beings of joyous and radiant light, unbounded by beliefs or thoughts or prophets or religions or economic structures. We can exist entirely beyond that as unbounded beings of light in states that would be best described as blissful, joyful, and full of chuckles. So in that radiant void, as some systems describe it, the Godhead, the boundless, unmanifest, the many names of the Tao which can be named is not the Tao, of course. But in that place, in that experience of consciousness, we implicitly understand why we come here and enter limitation and definition and belief system. We understand that it is an unavoidable consequence of the creation of planes like the physical, which limit severely our consciousness. We understand that. We take it on. And why do we take it on? Knowing the frustration and annoyance and suffering and pain that inevitably lie ahead. Because we wish to explore the world of low vibratory matter and spiritualize it with our consciousness. We are attempting over tens of thousands of years to spiritualize matter. It's an experiment, it's a game, it's a challenge, and it gives us something to do while we are here. Something other than taking care of all those first, second, and third chakra issues. All that bill paying and keeping healthy stuff. And that, of course, leads us back to all that meaning of life stuff we were talking about before. And people will sometimes say to me, "Oh, surely, Gordon, it's more than a game. Surely it has more significance than amusing ourselves whilst we are not in eternity and suffering in time." Well, not really. All that stuff that you learn, all that intelligence accumulated, all that creative artistic talent, worthy as it is, and as wonderful as it is accumulating it, ultimately it comes down to giving all that creativity, all that love, and all that intelligence back to the universal mind from which it originally manifested. It is not yours. It is not mine. I was doing time in the universal mind, as Jim Morrison sang with the Doors. And then you came along with a suitcase and a song. Jim certainly had it nailed in that song. So, more thoughts on belief systems. We live within them and we fly out of them bit by bit, plucking off the feathers from our wings and throwing them away.